Welcome to Blueprints for Liberty, Designing the Freedom Cities of Tomorrow. This is a podcast that explores the visionary concept of freedom cities and how we can create living environments that prioritize individual liberty, social harmony, and equal opportunities for all. We look back through history to see how the past informs the future and how people can self-organize in their communities to support self-sufficiency. We also look to develop leaders that are moral and ethical in a world that is spinning out of control. Tune in to be part of the conversation shaping the future of our communities. Hello and welcome, everyone. Today we have a special guest. His name is Brent Webb, and he is a mind power specialist. And I'll let him introduce himself and a little bit about what he does, and then we'll get into what our conversation will be about today. So, welcome, Brent. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here. So I am a mind power expert. I've been doing this for 30 years. I started as an entertainer, a little kid magician, actually. And I went to the library about 10 and I always took out magic books, as an only child. And one day, somehow on the shelf, the book, The Magic of Believing, was there, which I thought was a magic book. And I took it home and it was all about the power of the mind and the power of belief. And just something set that day, a seed was kind of planted that I knew there was really something more to what we believing. So fast forward, was in college, dropped out, hated it, went on the road, started opening for celebrities as an opening act, doing a mentalism act, doing a magic act. But along the way, around the world, I met a lot of spiritual teachers and a lot of, famous people that deal in this space and kind of learned how everything is a mindset thing. So the last maybe 7 years, I've been doing this, which is I still do a big show, but it's no longer just entertainment. It's also this message, of the power of the mind. And that's I do podcasts, TV, radio, whatever I can do, just kind of getting the message out, that we have this incredible supercomputer inside our head and we just have no idea how it works.
Yes, I like that. Interestingly enough, I have 2 grandsons and they enrolled in a magic program it started Monday.
I actually taught a magic course for children at a college for like a summer course, for kids. Magic is an amazing thing because it teaches you so many great life lessons, but also, manual digital dexterity, using your focus and your memory. So yeah, magic is a great thing.
Yeah, maybe we'll elaborate a little bit on that and, don't give away all the secrets of how the magic works, but we were watching America's Got Talent type thing because it was just a short video clip on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't, but there was this woman who was like changing clothes,
Yep.
Have you seen that one?
Oh yeah, they were friends of mine. He passed away I think from COVID. During the middle of the COVID pandemic, he died. But yeah, it's a fast change act, they call that. They're very famous in the circus where the woman just constantly, her costume's changing behind, inside of curtains and behind glitter and stuff. It's an amazing act, yeah.
Yeah, it was quite fascinating. And I guess I'm one of those that just sits and enjoys the show, as opposed to trying to figure it out. And then, you got my husband sitting next to me like, okay, well, they did this. And I'm like, I don't really want to know how it worked because I just like thinking it's magic.
Yeah, that's a man. That's a man for you. We have that. The male mind is always, you're not going to fool me. You're not going to make me, it's exactly right. The woman just enjoys it.
Into believing this.
Right.
Well, on that note, okay, let's talk about these mental training, because I'm also a certified mental trainer. Like I told you before we got on the call, I'm not a practicing one and I don't have any clients and I'm not soliciting clients because I don't consider that to be my area of expertise, but I clearly know enough about it. And, I think oftentimes we think of training the mind in a way that is it's like magic, as opposed to really understanding how the brain works. And I am a learning and development specialist, and I definitely understand how our brains work in terms of learning and development and the neuroscience behind all that. So, from your perspective, I wouldn't say give away all your secrets, but how does mind training work?
Well, first of all, we have, like I said, we have this amazing computer. It's like when you buy a cell phone, you get a manual. You buy a toaster, you get a manual. You get a manual with everything, but you're given this sophisticated super machine that can literally do anything. And it's just like, learn it. You don't have it, you're on your own with this. And I remember being in school and I had a teacher that told me once, you have to learn how to focus. And I said, yeah, you're right. I don't know how. Did we learn that? I don't remember ever learning that, because we really don't. And so what happens is we become slaves to our mind. We let the mind take over. And why it happens, the first 8 years, and think about this. If you think about this logically, you know this is true. When we're born, everything is amazing. There's no, when we're happy, we laugh. When we're sad, we cry. We can pretend to be this and that. But it's when life starts to program us. So what happens is your parents, your siblings, your teachers, the media, the government, your experiences, all of that is mental programming that starts to layer inside your mind. And it affects you depending on what, your backstory. As opposed to anyone else. So the first 8 years of your life, it's like I always tell people, imagine you have a tape recorder. And then I have to say, for you young people, that would be, like a digital recorder, because nobody knows what a tape recorder is. Yeah. But imagine there's a tape inside your mind. And so for the first 8 years, it's just recording everything. And when I say everything, it's everything that you say, everything that you do, everything else anyone else says, anything they do, anything you feel, anything you love, anything you hate, all of that. And then about 9, the tape stops. And for the rest of your life, that's the tape that's going to play in your mind when you're on autopilot. So that's whatever you did when you were a child, whatever the reasoning was, you weren't mature, but that's the old rusty programming. That's kind of, you've built this psyche inside your mind. It was free and open at one point, but now you've cluttered it. It's like the show Hoarders. Remember that show where everybody did pour everything in their house. Mm-hmm. That's what we do with experiences. We take things that we like, we take things that we don't like. And what you would think you would do with them if you didn't like something is you'd get rid of it, but we don't. We hold it in there with willpower. We push it in and we're holding it. And then anytime anything comes up that reminds us of that thing, it all fires back up again. And you say you broke up with someone and they drove a red Ford pickup truck. Now, every time you see a red Ford pickup truck, you're going to get that feeling in your stomach. You're going to get the flush in your face. Where's that coming from? It's you, right? It's not, the truck's not doing that to you. It's what you've stored in your programming. And so now as an adult, it becomes our job. It wasn't our job then because we were children, we weren't mature, but it is certainly our job now to figure out what's going on up there. Because most people, 90% of the time, we're on autopilot. You don't even know what your mind is doing. It's just running automatic programming. It's telling you, I always say it's a bitchy roommate. You live with a bitchy roommate inside your mind. They never shut up. They narrate your life. They tell you all the reasons you can't do something. Why, remember this time that you did this and this. They narrate your life and they make it torture for you. So as an adult, it's time to take a look in your mind and go, okay, what is this voice actually saying? What is going on up there? And when you do that, everything changes because it unlocks something that you've never looked at before. You've thought your whole life you're the mind, that you're the voice. And when you realize it's not you, it's programming, it changes everything. The perception changes immediately.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I've been doing some, mind exercises in the last little while of my own. And a favorite book of mine, I'm sure you're familiar with this, was also called The Secret.
Yep.
And I read it probably 20 years ago. I don't know, a long time ago. And I reread it again just recently. And I thought, because I was really getting into a rut in my life. And I thought, I've got to get out of this rut. And as I read it, it was like, oh, I'm inspired and I'm motivated. And I look at this like from a learning and development perspective. I always tell people, if you want somebody to retain what you teach them and what you learn, you've got to tap into their emotions, because emotions are really what hard code into your memories, things, that are going to last. And so I was reading this and I was doing well. And I set a couple of intentions and realized them and like, this is great. I'm going to keep going down that road. And then all of a sudden I got thrown for a couple loops. A couple things happened that kind of, triggered, I wouldn't say triggered old memories, but just triggered me in a way that was like, oh, created anxiety and created frustration. And I was like, oh, and then I found myself kind of going down this road. And as I was having a conversation yesterday with a woman I just barely met on LinkedIn, and she's like, oh, how's your marketing going for you? I'm like, oh, it really sucks. It's terrible. I'm not getting anything. I don't know. I'm like, I'm listening to myself going, what is wrong with me? It-
Okay, but okay, you just said it. You just said the magic thing that you know, you don't even realize you said it. That's the answer, what you just said. I was listening to myself, right? That's what it is. The voice was talking and you were listening to it. You weren't the one making it talk. You weren't the one talking. So you exactly said what the secret is. It's the idea that you're the consciousness, you're the awareness, you're the person above that. It's the soul you. So the voice talking in your head is just programming. It's the conditioned past. So once you realize, and you just said it, that I heard the voice talk, or I heard that, you realize it isn't you, and it starts to separate you from it, because that's what it just takes a little bit. It's like anything that you shine the light on that can't hold up to the scrutiny. As soon as the light's on it, it starts to disappear because it's not logical. It doesn't make any sense. It's something we never look at. We push it off. And when you start to see, wow, what is really going on up there inside my mind, it starts to unlock something. I mean, there's a deep spiritual part of us that we are connected to all the time, but we've covered it with so much crap. And so all the things we don't like, all the things that we're afraid are going to happen, all the things in the past that embarrassed us, and that keeps the energy from flowing. All those things inside, they require willpower. And so that's why when you meet somebody on the street and they say, how are you? And you say, I'm great. How are you? And they go, oh, and then they tell you this 30-minute story about their horrible life. And at the end of it, you feel like you need a nap because you just had all your energy sucked from you. You had an energy vampire come up, and that's what they do. They live off everyone else's energy. It's a precious resource. Nobody really understands this, though, because life is so in our face. We think that out there, the outer world, is the important one. We neglect the inner world, which is where everything comes from. Like, everybody thinks it's the car, it's the person, it's the facelift, it's the whatever that's going to make me happy. And it's not. Happiness is an inner thing. I mean, it's like confidence or love. I mean, where are you going to go out and buy those in the real world? You can't. You have to grant them first, but we're always looking. When I get this guy, I'll be happy. When I get that car, man, I'll really be happy. When I lose weight, when I, and it's like happiness is always ahead of you in that scenario. It's never where you are. You're like on a hamster wheel your whole life chasing it. So positive thinking is great because it starts to change the way you're looking at things, but it's not enough. It's kind of like you're bandaging up a bullet wound. It'll help, but it's not going to fix the problem. The problem is, why are we storing all these things? What is the programming? Let's take a look at it. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, and it was interesting, and bless her heart, she was trying very hard to, be a good listener and a good friend, even though, we just met, kind of thing. The more I talked about all my woe is me kind of life at the moment, she was like, well, let's dig into that. Let's try to figure out, well, did this work? Have you tried this and this? And it seemed to me that the more we talked about it and the more I focused on, the woe is me and this is why this isn't working. And yeah, I tried that. And she's like, well, did you try this? Yeah, I tried that. Did you try this? Yeah, I tried that. It just kept,
Yep.
I felt myself spiraling farther and farther down the drain, basically. And I was like, oh, I've got to get out of this rut. And then I realized it wasn't just that conversation I had with her and bringing up those topics where I may be facing some challenges in my life, but I was looking back at the last 2 weeks and certain interactions I've had with other people and different things that have happened in the last 2 weeks that have kind of, I wouldn't say set me back, but set my thinking back. And I'm like, oh, okay, I have to, yeah, we need to reframe this in a different way. So I assume some of what you do is reframing. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of reframing, but there's also the fact that most people have never looked at this at all. So you're not reframing it because there's nothing the original there. You don't ever have never even looked at it. Most people just think the voice, they've had it since they were a kid. They just think it's up there. They don't pay any attention. I mean, they pay attention, but they don't pay attention to why it's talking, where it's coming from, none of that. It's, that voice nobody has ever committed suicide without the voice telling you to do it. That's how much of an enemy that voice can become. I mean, it's the only thing in the universe, the soul you, that voice, the voice, though, is the only thing that knows everything you've ever done, all the horrible things, all the things you would be embarrassed if anybody found out, right? And it's the first one that will use those against you inside your head, and it. That voice can literally end you. I mean, that's the voice somebody hears at the end saying, what's the use? What's the use of going on? I've tried, that's what happens. That's how much of an enemy your voice can become, because we've left it untrained. It's like you've put a giant gorilla in a cage up there, and you've just left it alone, and it's up there throwing crap everywhere. It's just crazy. And you're bowing down to it because you're afraid of it, because you think that it is the boss and you are the servant, and it's the other way around, but you've never learned that. You don't know that. And so we just go through our life. It's like you don't ever awaken to the fact that there's anything else, that there is this incredible power that you have, that we're connected to each other and other people and to higher consciousness. Everybody's, they're religious, but they don't understand the spiritual part. They don't, you know what I mean? It's like they're always grasping for something out there to hold on to, when you got to look inside. And it's scary for a lot of people, because again, that's the voice that's going to tell you all these things, and all these reminders are going to pop up in your mind. I was meditating the other day, and I'm thinking about a birthday party I got embarrassed at when I was 7. Why would that come up? Right? That's something that's trying to release. It's like an old memory you've got stored in there and those things pop up from time to time. But understanding, like I said, what's going on. I always tell people, you got to do the ABCs of mind power. And real quick, the A is awareness. The first thing you got to do is you got to know what the voice is saying, because we don't. We're driving down the street. We're going, say, to the next town over. You're going to the grocery store. Are you in the car going, okay, I got to turn left in a quarter of a mile, then I've got to do this? No, you're not doing that. Somehow you're getting there. Your mind is doing it, right? And in your personal mind, you're going, oh God, I got to call Mary tonight, and I don't want to, because last time I talked to her, we had an argument, but this time I'm going to tell her this. And you're doing this whole song and dance inside your mind. You're mad at the guy driving next to you. You have this whole thing going on, oblivious, and you're getting to where you want to go. But that's what you're using your mind for right now. So you got to become aware of what the voice is saying. And the best way I teach people to do it is you just buy some Post-it notes. You make a happy face or some hearts or something, and you stick a few of those Post-it notes around the house, in the car, at the office. And now, whenever you see the Post-it note, that is your trigger to just stop. What's on my mind, and write it down. And I'm telling you, this is like a magic wand, because after a week, you're going to see, oh my God, what a bunch of useless crap this is. We don't even realize it. And then, like anything like that, it disappears. It starts to vanish when you have revealed it. So stop whatever you're doing. When you see the Post-it note, what's on my mind, right? And write it down. And just keep track of that. And you'll start to notice, it's just, not only is it illogical, it was created when we were immature. It wasn't created from an adult perspective of all the things that we know now. So you're looking at programming that was created, when you were under 10 years old. So the power goes away, because it's not the voice of God. It's not some, voice of the future that you have to listen to. It's just your past. It's there to protect you. It's there to say, reality in front of me is very similar to this that happened to you in the past. Remember that time that this guy hit you, and this guy walking towards you looks like that guy. So you're doing this whole thing inside your head. But when you become aware of that, again, the separation starts to happen, where now you're starting to be in the zone. You're starting to see when a dramatic situation happens. Now there's a little bit of time that there was never there before, it seems, at the beginning, and you don't get pulled into it. You can decide, do I want to go into this situation? Do I want to argue with this person? Is this worth my peace? And it seems like everything's in slow motion, but it's because some of these things you've worked through, you've gained that willpower back. So awareness is the first. Belief is the second. You've got to have that self-belief, because without it, there isn't anything else. Nobody else is ever going to believe in you. And finally, connection is the C. We're all connected to each other. We're all connected. There's a universal consciousness you can tap into, but it's the idea that we're all separate, that it's man versus woman, gay versus straight, black versus white. It's always this separation, because it's so much easier that way, when there's like me versus you. And if I don't get mine, I'll never get it. You're going to take it from me, that kind of situation. But so the connection is, we're connected to everyone, but the connection that's important most is the one you have with yourself. So I say, you can't get to where I want you to go. And again, I'm not selling any kind of course or anything, I'm telling people this because it's the way it is. You got to meditate, you got to pray, you got to chant, you got to do something that connects you to yourself, the inner you got to sit in a room. This is the scariest part for most people. You sit in a room silently, you don't move, and you do a mantra. You count to 20 in your head. You do something where you are super hyper aware of what's going on in your mind. People think meditation is I'm pushing all the thoughts away. I can't meditate because I have a million thoughts in my mind. Of course you do. That's the reason you're meditating. You're going to see what those thoughts are, and they're going to start to no longer have the hold on you, because during your day, those thoughts are coming up, but you don't realize it because you have other things going on. When you're sitting silently, not moving, those voices are going to pop up, but now you're really going to see what they're saying. So again, it's another great way to figure that out. And things that make no sense, they're the easiest things to go. Michael Singer always says rain or weather, like it's raining outside and it's your birthday or you're going on a picnic and now you're upset because it's raining. That's the easiest thing to get rid of because you have no control over that. Same thing with somebody driving in front of you too slow. Those are always his two big things. You know, you're back there yelling, he's up there driving, oblivious to the fact. So those two things are so easy to get rid of, but the connection with yourself is the most important. So awareness, belief, and connection. And if you can do those three things, you don't have to buy a course. You don't have to go to a cave and meditate. You don't have to go to India. Everything you need is already inside you, but you have to start figuring out, you know, what's going on so I can start untangling this programming.
Well, that's interesting because the first thing, a couple things come to mind on the awareness side of things, and I'm really going to date myself here. When I first moved out of my house as a teenager, most kids don't move out nowadays till they're old. I moved out when I was 17, but I was graduated from high school already, and I, was close to being 18 anyway. That aside, I went and lived with my aunt, and all of a sudden now I'm responsible for all of my own bills, which, didn't have to do that because parents took care of that for the most part when I was growing up. And I remember I was like, oh, I just keep spending money, it's like, what, where's all my money going? This is crazy. And so one day I got out a little notebook and, pencil paper, and I decided, and we didn't even have credit cards. I didn't have a credit card because I was so young. We did have credit cards back then, but debit cards or things like that. So everything I decided was cash. I was going to everything was going to be done in cash. When I'd get my paycheck, I'd go to the bank, I would, get my money, and everything was cash. And I had to mark down every single thing I bought, every candy bar I bought, every, everything, gas that I bought for my car. I had a checkbook for things if I wanted to pay the insurance on my car payment, things like that. But when I started going through, I was like, wow, look at all the money that I'm spending on unnecessary things, but it made me aware. And once I was aware, then I could attack the problem, and I could say, okay, I know where this is going, where that's going. And I could, start to fix it. And then, and this might be related, might not be related to what we're talking about. But one of the things that I've been working on is I have these dream. I mean, most people have dreams and recurring dreams, but one recurring dream I have is I've been married twice, and I never had this dream with my first husband. I've had it with my second husband, and it's like I'm in this dream, and I'm like, I'm with my first husband, but it doesn't feel right in the dream. It's like something's wrong, something's off. This just isn't right. What is it? And then partway through the dream, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, because I'm really married to somebody else. And then I'm like trying like crazy to contact, my new husband, who's not, by the way, trying to contact me. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I don't have his phone number, and he's far away. So how am I going to get a hold of him? But I have his parents' home phone number, their corded phone, that kind of thing, long time ago. But that doesn't seem to be, if I can get through, they don't seem to be helping me or whatever. And so this has bothered me because I've had this dream over and over and over and over and over in my life. And finally, one day I was talking to somebody and they said, wow, you sound like you got a lot of unresolved issues. And I'm like, wow, I never thought of that. And I never looked at it from that perspective, And since somebody has pointed that out and kind of made me aware of it, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I do have a lot of really unresolved things that I need to be working through. So, I know you're not a therapist or whatever. You probably don't interpret dreams or anything like that. But
I actually I can tell you that,
Good.
something that changed my life here, exactly what we're talking about. It's funny because I wasn't planning on talking about dreams, but dreams are your subconscious is releasing, you're trying to release something that you're holding inside. That's exactly what's happening. During the day, here's the thing, when something happens in front of you, okay, you never see it for real. You're seeing it through the lens of your past. So it's always distorted by things that have happened to you and your worldview and that sort of thing. So things that we like, we want to keep that close, right? We want that feeling. So we take that in. We do the same thing with things we don't like. We don't push it away. We hold it in with willpower. And then every time something makes us think of that thing, it comes back up. It's because it's meant to go through. Everything is meant to be experienced and go through, but we hold them. We hold these bad experiences. We hold these good ones. So all your subconscious is trying to do is help you. It's trying to, during the day, it's trying to release those. Every time the thought of you, whatever, and your boyfriend breaking up when you were 20 comes up, you get uncomfortable and you push it back down. So what the subconscious, this is how incredible your mind is. What the subconscious does while you're sleeping is it's trying to get rid of those same things, but it's disguising them. I mean, that's how incredible it is. It is taking something, and okay, maybe your parents died in a accident when you were a kid, and that would be a nightmare if you were dreaming that. So maybe instead you're seeing, birds that are free, they're flying free, and you're seeing something that's trying to free you. It's that same energy pattern that's trying to release, but it's cloaked it to make it easier for you, even in sleep. Your consciousness is still watching this, because it's like, how do you even know you're dreaming? You're right. You're dreaming because the consciousness is watching the dreaming going on. So it's trying to release those things to help you. It's like, I'm going to release something in the middle of the night. We'll make it, instead of the grandfather who hit them as a child, we'll make it a train that does. It's some weird. Why am I dreaming about, why am I dreaming about a Santa Claus doing it? Yeah, it's somehow cloaked, and Carl Jung was really one of the first who was able to could tell me what your dream is, and they could tell you what it's about, because there's certain things, like when you dream, and again, I'm not an expert on dreams, but I mean, there are certain things, like when you dream of a clock and you dream of a this, that you can point back to what those mean. So that's somebody you could look up for that, because he's got some great work, on dreaming. But when you realize that it's your mind trying to help you, that it is something from your past that you've stored inside that wants to leave, it's never meant to be held in. And when you're a kid, nothing's held in. But then over time, oh, I got stung by a bee. Now I'm afraid of bees. I'm going to hold that inside. Right. Oh my gosh, I got the first kiss from my girlfriend. That was amazing. I'm going to hold that inside. Every time you do that, it takes willpower to hold it in there. And that's where all your will's going. That's where all your focus is. It's all over the place. So, in dreams, I just love that, because it shows you just how amazing our mind is. It's literally trying to save you. I have to go through that again, visualize that again. So it's kind of cloaking it and trying to release it. So, I mean, it is incredible.
Yeah, it is. And I really like the idea that, that that dreams are a way to kind of, I think you say release things, I kind of maybe say resolve things and work through things, because I find, and I don't want to say that I don't think, because I know a lot of people who've really benefited from therapy, and I'm not trying to knock therapy, but in my own personal experience in dealing with therapy, it seems like the more I talk about the problem, the more the problem just persists.
Oh,
And
you got that so right. Oh, I love when somebody actually says that. I just did a seminar. I just did a cruise, a Caribbean cruise a couple of weeks ago for Norwegian, and I do a big show, but I also do a seminar, Mind Power seminar, and I'm always teaching people that, and nobody gets it. I mean, I love that you said that.
yeah, and like I said, I don't want to knock therapy, because I do know that it does unearth and makes some people really aware of things, and they are given strategies for dealing with things, which I think is helpful. But I have found, in the last probably 6 months, I've come across some, and I use the word, well, I don't know why I use the word spiritual, because I really think of, I'm deeply religious. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. Let me frame everything under that umbrella, okay? So when we talk about spirituality, I think of it in a different realm than I do my faith in God, as opposed to my faith in myself or my faith in my belief, my beliefs outside of religious thinking. When I've started engaging with some of these spiritual type things, I have, and I quit trying to think about the problem or whatever it is that I feel like is weighing me down. And I'll just use gene keys as kind of an example. There's the shadow, the something in the city. I can't remember the middle one, but the shadow is kind of what's holding you back. And instead of focusing on what's holding me back, it's like, okay, you just accept it. It's like it's just a part of your daily life, and you contemplate as opposed to meditate. I think meditate is sitting there and thinking, kind of isolating yourself from what's going on to contemplate on a deeper level. But contemplation can just simply be, oh, I'm driving down the road, I'm contemplating something, I'm doing the dishes, I'm contemplating something. And so as I contemplate about some of these things that are in the shadow, I find myself accepting them, and just then once I accept them, then I can move on from them. And I'm able to progress up through that middle level, which I can't remember the name of. I'm such an expert here. And then on to the city, which is obviously the highest level of in the gene keys thing. And I'm just amazed. I'm like, wow, I'm so used to, okay, well, I need to identify what the problem is, and then I need to come up with a strategy for addressing this problem. And then I need to, set goals and all of these very formal things. And they're like, no, just kind of, and that's what works for me. I'm not saying that works for everybody, but it's been very freeing for me. It's been very, oh, okay, hey, this is who I am. This is kind of more about myself, and this is how I operate. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, whatever works for you, but that is still your lower mind trying to control things, giving you all the things you need to do this, do that. And the thing with a therapist is, and I always tell people, I feel the same way as you. I mean, some people really benefit from therapy. There are some amazing therapists out there. But when you go to see a therapist and you sit in there and talk about your problem for 90 minutes or 60 minutes, and you get up, that problem doesn't disappear from your mind when the door closes. You go home and you stew about it, and you go to sleep and you think about it, and tomorrow you're still, it is dredging up more. A lot of these things, like I said, are that you're holding inside, you don't even realize anymore. The little ones will go by themselves as soon as you start to become aware of what the voice is saying. When you meditate, when you do something to sit with yourself, the little things go, the low-hanging fruit will leave. And then every time, and this, I've worked with millionaires, billionaires, celebrities. I mean, I've done the Cleveland Browns, the Dodgers, they hire me to work with the teams. And I can tell you, every successful person that is really successful understands when you release something and you get that willpower back, that you take the willpower and you focus it on something that matters. That's what's happening. It's like you're releasing something that doesn't serve you. That little bit, that pinpoint bit of willpower returns to you, to your energy center, and then you focus it where it matters. So you just keep doing that. The little things will go automatically. The harder one, the bigger ones are going to take a little more time, but they'll eventually go. Because as soon as you're aware, you're almost 90% of the way there. Most people never have that awareness for their entire life. They go from birth to death in a tunnel. They don't realize that there is, they have any power over what's happening inside their mind, that they can change the way they feel, change the way they look at things, change the way they're storing their past. And because they say we spend about 40% of our time in the past, which is, I wish I would have done this. I wish this would have happened, and then I wouldn't have done this. And if I had married him first, then he wouldn't have. That's what we do. And I wish I could have changed that, all of this. So we live there. That's 40%. We live another 40% of our day in the future going, this is going to be horrible if this happens. It can't happen this way. Oh gosh, what am I going to do when I got to pay for that or whatever? So you're doing those two things, which is I'm in the past, can't change it, right? I'm in the future, which is not here. I can't do anything about that either. And 80% of the day is one of those two things, both of those things. So that only leaves 20% of the time here. And this is the moment. Eckhart Tolle's big book, The Power of Now, is all about this moment. And I love that the fact that it isn't religious. It fits in with any belief system. It's just the idea that the moment in front of you is the moment that matters. It's the only moment you can do anything. The past is over. When the past was happening, guess what moment it was when the past was going on? It was the present moment. When the future finally gets here, it's going to be happening in this moment. But it's like you don't want this moment. It's like pouring a cup of coffee. I don't want this moment. I want the next moment when I'm drinking the coffee. Oh, it's Monday. I can't wait for Friday. That's what always happens. So you just are living in this parallel universe where you're in the past thinking if this had been different, I could have done this, or you're in the future. So again, this is just awareness. There's no secret. You talked about the secret, which is great. I mean, the law of attraction, the way that you're thinking, but they always leave out the step where it's not like you sit on the sofa, you dream about a Ferrari, and then it's in your driveway. That's how people like to think.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, you have to believe you can have it. You have to believe that you already own it. You have to feel like it's yours, but then you have to start moving towards it. You have to start making some action steps. That's the one everyone forgets. When they hear that, they think, "Oh, I'm trying to manifest my dream life." And I always say to people, "What do you want?" And if they say, "Oh, I want $1 billion. I want the husband. I want the wedding of my dreams." Okay, say I can give you that. I can give you the $1 billion, and I'm going to drop it on the desert island where you're going to be for the rest of your life, just you and the money. Do you still want it? And they're going to say no. Okay, I'm going to give you that wedding you want in Maui with the $500,000 wedding. It's going to be the most incredible wedding anybody's ever gone to. And the husband that you marry is going to make you feel like crap. You're going to have the worst relationship. You never see anything like it. Do you still want it? No, because it's what you think the thing is going to give you that you really want. It's not, I want the $1 million or the mansion or the car, because when I first got, successful and I had sports car and I had the big house, my whole life, I thought that was it. I grew up watching that show Dallas, which was like, when I was a kid, my mom started watching it with me when I was 5. It started, right? And then she stopped watching because she was smart. I kept watching all the way into high school. So I thought, man, this is great. This is how you need to be. This guy, this J.R. Ewing, he's such a crook, but he's always smiling. And he's got the best life and everything, right? And then okay, this is it. Money will fix everything. Money will make me happy. Then when you start making money and you get the big house and you're happy for a moment, because you got it. But when it really starts to, and I had a big fall from that point. I mean, I started drinking, I started doing, popping pain pills, I started smoking, all of these things, because it was such a huge letdown that what I thought my entire life was going to be the key to happiness, it was not. It was nothing. It was so empty. So, it's like what we think we want is not usually what we want. We want what there's something behind it. If you look behind what it is you're asking for, you'll usually find out what the real thing is. And it can almost always be broken down to, I want to be happy. Why do you want that big house? Oh, because I'll feel comfortable. I'll feel like people will look at me. I'll feel, confident. Okay, but why not wish for confidence? Why not pray for confidence? Why not, you know what I mean? You're always adding a middleman to the story that doesn't need to be there. It's like what you want is to be happy, is to live a great life, to help people. That's what we really want. But we think, because we're so used to this programming that we've been force fed all these years, big cars and mansions and, cheating each other, and hey, that's great, that's what we think life is. And it's such an illusion, of what is really going on.
Well, it's funny because I had a little saying at the end of my email, in my email signature for a long time, is what happiness is getting what you want. What is it? Success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get.
Yeah.
It took me a long time. I was like, oh, I don't really get this. I don't really understand it. But, over the course of time, I think it's kind of what you're saying. But I want to step back too, because I want to talk about willpower for a second, because I think there's that, to me, willpower is kind of a double-edged sword. It's like, okay, I'm going to go on a diet, so I need willpower. I need willpower to resist all these things that I shouldn't be eating because I'm on a diet and I want to lose weight. Well, let's turn that around and flip it on its head and say, okay, instead of focusing on all the things I can't have, we've all heard this, let me focus on the things I can have. And then I don't necessarily need willpower as much anymore. depending on if I've got, if you've got some kind of serious addiction to sugar, which a lot of people have, then that's a different story because you're dealing with that. But that's why I say it's a double-edged sword. It's like willpower can be great to help you, but I think oftentimes we look at willpower as the ability to resist things that are bad for us, or, in our life. But by focusing on those things, it actually almost guarantees that's what's going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Well, again, though, that's the mind. The lower mind is doing both of those sides of your argument there. It's the mind that's saying, I can't have this. I don't want, I need to do this. And I'm going to use willpower. Your lower mind is rationalizing all of that for you. You don't, we're letting the mind make the choices and we're thinking that it's us. In other words, because what you're doing in any sort of mind training, and again, it's not any sort of religious thing, it's not any sort of anything really. I mean, it's spiritual for the fact that you're connected to yourself, you're connected to God, you're connected to source, you're connected to that. But it's not spiritual for the fact that you're looking out in the cosmos for something to help you. Everything is inside. So the things that we've used willpower for in the past, that's what we want to start removing. We don't even have to worry, because what'll happen is the present gets increasingly easier by what's being removed from the past. Because every time that willpower leaves, you get a stronger amount of willpower. That's what meditation does. If you're doing, I tell people count to 20 over and over. It's the easiest meditation. You sit cross-legged, count to 20. When you get to 30, you've gone too far, you go back to 1. If you start thinking about a ham sandwich, you go back to 1. And that's all you do, 1 to 20. And people go, well, what does that do? It creates the muscle, gives you the muscle of focus. It creates that ability to keep pulling back your focus, your willpower. And like anything you do, it's almost like a muscle. You're building something that we have never used. When that teacher said you have to focus, and I said, how do you do it? She said, you're right. I didn't learn to focus. You're right. And most teachers aren't going to do that. Well, shut up, you be quiet. But that's true. And I think she really thought about it. And it focus, we use, because the connotation of willpower you're taking is what we've given it, which is, yes, there are two sides to it. But really the focus, just take willpower, the word willpower out completely. The ability to concentrate your focus is all that matters. And it's not denying yourself things. People think that like it's renunciation. That's what I'm using willpower to not eat. I'm using willpower to only eat carrot sticks. That's renunciation. They're giving away something. So you're still not using it in the correct way. You want to learn how to use your focus, not to take things away from yourself. It's just to be able to, because our minds give us a million things at a time to think about, to try to process, not just what's coming in from the outside. I mean, you're stimulated by everything that's coming in your outer world, but then we've got this inner world that we've got our own thing going on, that's completely separate from everyone else. Like if we were sitting in a big auditorium and you were watching me on stage and I was talking, at some point, if I started to bore you, you could tune me out. Now, not to be rude, you don't want to leave, so you're going to stay in the audience, but you're not going to be listening to me anymore. And how many times have we done that? Because you're in your own world. The outer world fades away, and then the inner world is the important one. You're arguing with your husband. You're thinking what you're going to make for dinner. You are doing a whole bunch of machinations inside your mind. So the inner world and the outer world, we put so much stock in the outer, which is everything that matters we think is out there. The people, the places, the things, the job, the whatever. Somebody says something to us in the outer world. What do? We take it to the inner world. We start obsessing over it. What did he mean? What did he mean when he said that? Why did she not talk to me when I said hi this morning? She completely ignored me. That happened 2 hours ago, but not for you. It's still happening. Because that's what we do. We don't let these things come through us. You're meant to experience life and it goes through, not I'm clinging to this because I like it and I'm repelling this because I don't. You're collecting all of that stuff. So it's about getting rid of things. It's not about adding anything. It's about just letting things kind of release from you. And it's a natural process. Like I said, it's just, you already have because you said about, the voice was talking, or whatever you said earlier, when you were saying like, you knew what the voice was saying, you're almost there. Because I mean, the idea that that there is a voice talking, that a lot of times it says BS, and that, that is liberation. You are so close, because most people never, ever get to that point. They never even figure. They just think, it's always, And I hate people that when they say, I don't hate people, I hate when people say, God hates me, or the universe is out to get me, or I don't understand because I was good why this did, you know what I mean? Like, why, where is it written that this is our moment? That's the other thing. And Michael Singer's big on this too, but he talks about, you know, the moment in front of you. Why do you think that moment is you? It has to do with you. And that's what we all do. It's like, it took 13 billion years for this moment to get here, and everything that had to happen for this moment to happen. And you're worried about, you know, what Mary thinks about your dress, if it's going to rain tomorrow. That's what you're doing with this amazing gift, this unbelievable gift of creation. It's like, here is creation. You weren't back there to see the beginning of it, but you're here in the continuation of it, and you don't want it. It's like, I like this, I don't like that. So that's why they say, you know, the first thing you realize is that suffering, you know, life is suffering because of your preferences. The idea that I want something, I don't want something. So I want this, I don't want that, right? Now you're going to create your entire life around getting that and not getting this. And your whole life's going to be that. If you were afraid of spiders as a kid for some reason, now for the rest of your life, anytime you see a spider, hear about a spider, that you're holding that in. And it's not just that, it's like movies with spiders, or somebody you thought they said spider, or anything could trigger that inside. And that's what we do. The things we like, the sunset. I saw a beautiful sunset once. So now, oh, I'm holding that inside, right? I saw it on the corner somewhere. And now I'm trying to buy the house that was there where I saw the sunset. How happy are you going to be when you realize that you're never going to feel that way again, right? That's what we do. The things that are just amazing, we cling to, and the things we don't want, we try to repel. But in the end, they're still in there. We're still in our energy, those patterns. And that's why anytime anything, it's why when somebody says, don't go there with me, you know exactly what that means. You're getting very close to my stuff. You're getting very close to the stuff that gets my back up, that makes me upset. Don't go there with me. My mom used to say, you know, not to go there with your father. In other words, this is a subject. If we talk about it, it's going to trigger something inside of him. And that's what we do. So we play our whole life. It's like you've pitted yourself against God or the universe or whatever you believe in, because now I don't like this moment. It's got to be the way I want it. It's got to be, you know, I'm going on a picnic, so it needs to be sunny. This needs to happen, this, that, this. So we're trying to look at reality and make it be what we want. So again, this is what your mind is, an incredible ally, but we've let it become this colossal bully. And that's really what it's doing to us all day long. It's like it's torturing you. And I always tell people, in what other universe would you live in the room with your torturer lovingly, which is what you do. You've got somebody up there literally saying, you are the ugliest. I mean, people's minds tell them everything. You're too fat. You're too stupid. People like you don't deserve that. You remember when you did this, you are pathetic. That's what your mind is. You're literally being tortured. You know, people go to prison for some big crime and they get released maybe someday. We don't ever release ourselves. We never let ourselves off the hook. You'll keep thinking about that time when you were 8 years old for the rest of your life if you don't realize what's going on up there. So it's like, you know, we've bowed down to this thing, but it doesn't have to be that way. We're really in control. And when you start to gain that back, you start to get the energy. You start to, you know, it's why you feel exhausted. It's what depression is. You have no energy. You're depleted. Like, you know, you see people that are just, their girlfriend broke up with them. They are so depressed that the house is full of pizza boxes. They can't go anywhere. People call them and try to go. They just can't move. They are so depressed. And then maybe the girlfriend calls and says, I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. I love you more than anyone. I'll be there in a half hour. Guess what happens? That guy's going to jump up. He's going to clean the house. He's going to shower. He's going to shave. Where'd that energy come from? Where did all that energy come from that you were just so depressed you were laying there and couldn't move? The energy is always there, but we have clogged it up. I mean, we're supposed to be happy. We're supposed to be, you know, living a life of service. We're supposed to be helping other people, but we're not. We're all so wrapped up in ourselves and our own little world that we never experience life. You're experiencing it through the lens of you. And for most of us, that lens is just a rusty, dusty, cracked, scary thing. Because every time you're seeing reality, you know, you no longer, it's like the Buddhist thing, only tree. It's like you never see trees them all together. A pine tree is a pine tree in your mind. So you don't ever look at anything. People start to do that too. You start to do that with people. It's like you saw a lady once who was so drunk, she couldn't stand up the first time you met her. And now in your mind, she's the drunk. Well, maybe she only had, that was the only time she ever drank. Her dad died and you didn't know it and she got fall down drunk. But in your mind, because you've created the story, she's the drunk. This guy's the this guy's lazy, this guy. That's what we do. We label everything. People, trees, cars, and you're no longer seeing the beauty of the universe and how amazing it is. You're seeing your version of it. You're looking through a lens. And awareness, all of those things, they start to shine your lens up. They start to, put the glass cleaner on it and you start to see things. Your perspective changes. Everything, you're in control. You just don't know it.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think, on a final note here, as you're talking, it's triggering a lot of things in my brain. I'm thinking a lot of things that, may or may not directly tie to what you're saying. But one of the focuses that I've had, I do a Sunday night group, a really small group, and it's like I walk away from that group every Sunday night just like filled with energy and filled with optimism and filled with good things. And one of the things we talk about is words and how we've given words definitions. And by giving these words definitions, we've limited our ability to look at things through a different lens. And just one example that I had the other night was we talk about the word bed. If you think about a bed, what do you think about? First thing anybody thinks about when you think about a bed is where am I going to go to bed at night? Where do I sleep? Where do I put my head when it's time to go to, sleep? And that's good. But there's also a garden bed. That's a different kind of bed. And then I was looking up other types of beds, and there's all different kinds of beds. There's tanning beds, there's massage table beds, there's, and they're all have similarities, but each of them has something unique and different about it. And then I'm into history and I do historical tours. And one of my favorite tours is we go through a graveyard, and it's not a ghost tour. It's just talking about different people that are buried there. But it's a really old cemetery. And I just love a graveyard, where you're buried is kind of a bed, but it's got a headstone and a footstone, and it's usually with a little lamb at the top, and it's usually associated with children's graves, and it looks like a little bed where a child might have laid.
Yep.
And I thought, wow, and it just conjures up all other kinds of things that I would never have associated with the word bed.
And we do that with everything. We do it with everything. Like I said, the pine tree, you don't see the individual, you don't see it anymore. In your mind, okay, that's a pine tree. Once you've labeled it once, it's over. Because now you're only you can be the most beautiful beach ever, but you're only looking at things through what you've stored there. So yeah, that's so true. And I love that you looked up what else could beds, what else could be beds, because that's a great exercise to show people, hey, when you think of this and then you find out all the other things it could be, or you start to realize, wow, I do that, not just with things. I mean, it's really scary when you realize, like I said, that you're doing it with people.
Yes. And the first time you see somebody, you judge them based on what they look like, what they're wearing, what environment they're in, there's a whole host of things. And I think we also do that to ourselves. We judge ourselves. And when we can let go of judging ourselves and be more kind to ourselves, I think that also gives us permission to be more kind to other people.
For sure. I mean, that's the only way to do it, because you can't do anything for anyone else, really. And if you're in such constant turmoil, the more you do, when you work on yourself, not only do you heal your stuff, I just call it stuff, but you could end the generational trauma that's going on in your family. You could, something that's been passed down, you could be the one who stops and says, I'm going to end this here, because just the awareness of why do we do this? Why do we do these things in our family, or whatever that is? You can be the one that not only changes your life, but changes the entire direction of your family, that changes your children. They start to get inspired. They see what's going on and they see you changing. Other people see you changing. And that's how we change the world, because you can't go out there and try to fight and try to make it be what you want no matter what you are, politically or whatever. If you're coming from that point, it's always you against someone, right? It's always that. But if you're coming from, you're fixing yourself, people get inspired by it. They want to do it. They see, wow, there's something changing in you. I'm seeing this light in you. They get inspired. They start to change. It's a ripple effect. And that it's really, I mean, it's so easy. It's just so hard. It's because of what we're programmed with. I mean, nowadays we have a 7-second attention span. We're on our phones all the time. I don't even have my ringer on my phone. And people get mad at me all the time because they're trying to call me, but I just don't believe in it. I mean, I use it when I need it, but I try not to. I see people all the time. I go in Starbucks or something and they never look up. It's like I go to concerts where, I've just paid $800 for these seats and there people are next to me watching the concert and recording it on their phone, but they're watching the concert on the screen. Why not stay home? Save the $800. What are you doing? It's like we are so enamored with the flash that we don't realize that we are so amazing, that we are powerful. We're just made to feel small. We don't have this. We don't wear this lipstick. We're not good. If we don't do that, that's all programming. It's all advertising. And everything's advertising. It's not just what we're seeing on television, as far as commercials, but it's everything. Nowadays, big companies, Coca-Cola, they own movie studios and you see Coke and all that. I mean, it's so much subliminal you don't even realize, but we're always being programmed. So the more you can disconnect, I don't have cable. I got rid of, news shows years ago because if you want to figure out something, go out and do some research just like you did about the beds and that sort of thing. And instead of just assuming that what somebody else is telling you is true, and that also is how you expand your consciousness. We have like a shot glass size awareness or, maybe a ping pong ball, but you can expand that and it can become a golf ball and it can become a tennis ball and your awareness gets bigger and you understand more. You could read something you read 6 months ago and now it makes perfect sense because your awareness has grown. And that's what happens when you're not just taking things in that other people are saying or that reality is showing you. You're kind of, doing your own research, or you're using yourself as kind of you have this refuge. You have this amazing place you can go that's inside. And, we're all, I'm going to go to Hawaii. You can find 2 miserable people. I had an aunt and uncle that were the most negative, miserable people. I guarantee if I put them in Hawaii, they would just be negative, miserable people in Hawaii. And negative, miserable things would happen. Like they would go through the drive-through through the car wash and the window would come down somehow at one time and the car's filled with soap. Who does that ever happen? I've never heard that happening to anyone, but that kind of stuff happened to them all the time. They would have fell in a volcano or something. So there's always something. You can't, you're not going to mask it by trying to put something over it, which is when I get this person, that poor person that you're going to try to fit into to all your problems, right? And make it like, okay, they've got to be the way I want them to be. Like that's a horrible thing to put on someone. So yeah, when you fix yourself, everything starts to change because it's like the only thing you really can do. You have no force outside of yourself to fix anyone else. You just can inspire them and let them fix themselves too.
Yeah. And I think on that final note, we're stating the obvious, but if you want to change the world, you start by changing yourself.
Yep.
So, okay. Thank you for your time today. Do you want to share with my audience how they can get in touch with you or anything along those lines? I'll have all of your information in the show notes, but if you want to, articulate.
I'll tell you, the thing that I'm doing now is because, like I said, I'm just trying to get this information really into people who need it. I spent so many years teaching, billionaires, millionaires, all of that, but they have nannies and they have accountants and they have assistants, and it's really the masses. And I just realized kind of after COVID, everyday people need this information. So they have to understand how to use it. And it has to be simple. It can't be something where they're trying to sell you something else and they're trying to take you down to get into their program. So like I said, meditation is important, contemplation, any of that. So the thing that I'm offering now, we have a meditation mini course, which is a free journal with some guided meditations. And I just give you the steps you need to start meditating. Super easy. But if you do that a couple minutes a day, it will change your life. I promise you. It will change everything if you stick with it, because your mind is going to fight you. It's going to say, I don't want to do this. My back's sore. My arm's tired. What am I going to do for lunch? That's what your mind's going to do. But you just have to sit there, and you do that 3 minutes twice a day, maybe, and you just start adding time. If you can get up to 10, 12 minutes, it'll change your life, but a little bit will help as well, just at the beginning. So anyway, I put together the course. It's available now. It's free download at meditationminicourse.com. You just put in your email, you'll get on my list. I send out a newsletter every couple of weeks just with some tips, just like we talked about, just little tips you can use in your everyday life that'll change everything for you. So meditationminicourse.com, you can grab yours and start meditating. I promise it will just change the way you look at your life.
Well, thank you. I totally agree. I encourage people to take advantage of that because meditation is a very powerful tool for changing. So thanks for your time today and check that out, everyone.
All right. Thank you.